All right. Testing, testing. If you can hear me, go ahead and put a one in the chat, please. Just want to make sure that the audio is working here. Let me close some things out. All right. Good, 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 good. Okay. So, um, welcome to Strat Beginner Series number 3. Um, so, last week we talked about broadening formations and price expansion, and broadening formations just being a series of higher highs and lower lows. This week, we are going to be talking about time frame continuity and then also the uncoupling. So just to keep it like in its simplest form, I know there's others who've made like very eloquent videos about it, but I try to, just keep it as simple as possible. Um, and for the record, that's not a knock on anybody else. Just, I try to keep it simple as possible. Um, So, what time frame continuity is, as Sarah Strat Sniper says, basically the trend is your friend, right? So, it's what part of the universal truths, the time frame continuity, and what it contributes to is probably the highest probability of a successful trade, right? When you combine that with the broadened information and as well as an actionable signal. So, basically, with the time frame continuity, no matter what time frames that you're looking at, depending on what type of trader you are, whether you are a scalper or day trader or swing trader or long term like leap options trader, or if you don't trade options like investor, like so they'll go for the long term. You want to make sure that you are entering with the trend. Basically, the trend is your friend. All time frames are in unison with each other, right? Ideally, what we would love to do as striders is jump into reversals into time frame continuity, because again, the trend is your friend. The way that I look at it is kind of like I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show Life Below Zero, but one of the guys on there, his name is Andy Bassage. He lives next to the Yukon River, very strong river, very strong flow, very strong current. Um, and so the example that I have in my mind with that is if you jump into that Yukon River and you try to swim upstream, you're probably going to end up dying because you're going against the current and it's going, you're basically going to fail. As opposed to if you're trying to head downstream or if you head in whatever direction that river is flowing, you're going with that flow. There's less obstacles, there's less resistance with that particular trade as long as you're going with that flow. So again, the trend is your friend. Basically, the more time frames that are in your favor, the higher the probability of success for your trade. Um, so with that being said, do because I know the question always comes up, do all time frames have to be exactly in your favor? Not necessarily. Ideally, you would want them all, right? But if not, I know some traders that have taken trades where, for the most part, the larger time frames are the ones that are in time frame continuity, in confirmation with each other, and then maybe like the smaller time frame may not be. Um, those are probably some of the better trades that you can look for. Like if you see, for example, even though I'm not currently showing it. But like, let's say the month, the week, and the day were all in confirmation with each other, right? And then you have the 60. So let's say they were all up, right? The month, the day, the week are all up. They're all bullish. But then you have a bearish day. For me, I'm looking at that as a potentially good setup, especially if it ends up that day ends up as an actionable signal, right? Let's say it ends up being like a two down hammer, right? Well, hammer, that is a two down, right? So you're looking at that like, okay, so if we potentially reverse on the next candle of the 60, we're reversing right into time frame continuity. So therefore you can go ahead and get in on that trade and it's probably going to be a pretty successful trade, right? If you're looking to enter on the 60, you always want to double check the larger time frames to see if they're in confirmation with what it is that you're trying to do. All right. If there's any questions while I'm doing this, please don't hesitate. I will pause from time to time to answer any questions that come through. But time frame continuity is pretty straightforward. Right. So with that being said, you have 4 C's essentially when it comes to time frame continuity, right? Control, confirm, change, and conflict, right? For most stratters, they're looking at these 4 time frames. You have the month here, you got the week, you got the day, and then you have the hour or the 60, right? I personally don't use the 60. I personally use the 65. Shout out to 8X for putting a brother onto that. But for the 60, what that tells us and why it's so important is it shows us who's currently in control, right? You still want to, obviously, you still work your way from larger time frames into the smaller time frames, but the 60 will show you what's happening right now, right? So let's say, Monday, we open up, we see exactly what's happening on that first hour, who's in control on that first hour, right? And whatever's going on with that hour, again, depending on how you want to trade it, you also want to make sure that those other time frames are in confirmation with each other. In confirmation with each other just means that, everybody's on the same page, right? The different participation groups. So the people who trade the 60 are in confirmation with the people who trade the daily, with the traders on the weekly, with the traders on the month. That's confirmation. Right, those different participation groups are in confirmation with each other. And then also the control, again, that's where the 60 comes into play. It tells you who's in control right now at that very moment. Right. As far as change, essentially all that is just a change of the time frame continuity, right? So you usually see that once, for example, if you see it in either the top or the bottom of a broadening formation, usually probably on a larger time frame, and then you start to see the time frame continuity change. Like if you hit the top, it exhausts, you catch the reversal, not only on the daily, but then the daily leads to the weekly, and the weekly leads to the month, and then the month leads to the quarter, et cetera, and so on and so on. That's your change in your time frame continuity, right? There are going to be times where you'll have that ability to trade that, even though let's say the larger time frames may not have caught up at the time. But usually if you're at exhaustion risk on the larger time frames, you might see the day go red first, and then that's going to again lead to the change of the rest of the time frames on the weekly, the monthly, etc. One second. And then conflict is just, I'll see if we can look at some tickers a little bit later on towards the end of this. Conflict is basically just the time frame continuities are not in confirmation with each other, right? For example, you can have the hour is red, but the day could be green, the week could be red, and so it doesn't have to be in that order, but they're just basically not in confirmation with each other. And usually if that's happening, you probably don't want to really mess around too much in it, especially if you're seeing like inside candles on some of the different time frames, because that could just, with that type of indecision, nothing in confirmation, you can end up kind of getting chopped up and your trade kind of not really working in your favor. Remember, as strategers, we want to take the highest probability trade. There is no strategy that's 100%. Let me be clear on that, right? So this does not guarantee if you jump into a trade with all 3 universal truths in unison with one another. For example, again, actionable signal, broadening formation, and then also the time frame continuity. It just makes it the highest probable trade for success. It's not going to be 100% every single time. Everybody takes L's, right? But those are your four C's, right? The 60 will show you, who's in control right now. Confirmation, right? When you're trying to enter on one time frame, whether it be the 60 or if you're a swing trader, like me, you might be entering on the daily or the weekly. You always want to make sure and confirm, or excuse me, you always want to make sure that you check with the larger time frames to confirm that they're in, basically in unison with the trade that you're trying to enter into on that particular time frame. Then you have conflict again. That's just where you have the different participation groups that are, all doing different things, right? You can have the quarterly traders, they could be bearish. The monthly traders are bullish, weekly traders bullish, but then the daily traders are bearish, right? Hourly as well too could be bearish as well too, right? So that's just showing that that's in conflict. And again, I'm not saying don't ever trade something like that, but I mean the idea is, as far as sticking to the Strat principles, the idea again is to jump into trades that have the highest probability of success. All right. Let me pause here to see if there's any questions. The four C's, yeah. The four C's are control, change, confirm, and then conflict. I'll type it in. Give me 1 second. Four C's. Control, change, conflict, and confirm. There you go. All right, 1 second. Let me see if there's. Sorry, answering one question. Okay, so back to, sorry about that, just answering some questions. Okay, all right, Alatra, you get it? Cool. All right, so now back to the different time frames. Remember I said you would want them to be in unison and confirmation, but also importantly, you would want them to be uncoupled, okay? And what I mean by that is the more time frames are uncoupled, the more you actually get to see what the different participation groups are doing, right? So when I say participation groups, in this example, we're talking about the monthly swing, right? The monthly traders, probably swing traders, right? The weekly traders, probably a combination of swing trading, maybe some intraday traders, but probably mostly swing traders here, but just trade maybe like 2 weeks at a time, right? Or a week at a time, right? Daily traders as well, right? Those are, well, yeah, again, for, the day traders probably. And then also the hours probably going to be the day traders, and the smaller time frames will probably be the scalpers as well too. Or the scalpers may even be using the 60. I'm not really sure. I'm primarily a swing trader because of my lifestyle. So you would have to ask if anybody's in the chat that's a day trader or a scalper. You're more than welcome to put in the comments what time frames you particularly use, to help out anybody that's watching this that is not necessarily a swing trader. But back to the uncoupling. You want to know what all the different participation groups are doing. All right. When the year first began, the first day of trading for the year of this year, 2023, the year, the quarter, the month, the week, the day were all coupled together. During the first hour of the first trading day, they were all coupled together, right? So that information, so what you could be seeing is, everything could be green during that first day, but you're not actually getting, I call it kind of like, in my mind, I kind of look at it as kind of false information because you're not seeing necessarily what the different participation groups actually think or how they actually feel about that particular ticker because everything is completely coupled together, right? So you would want them to be uncoupled. So for example, the second day, now the daily is uncoupled, right? So once the second day happens, then the daily time frame is now uncoupled from all the other time frames, right? Same thing for second week, right? Once we get to the second week, not only is the daily, but also the weekly is now uncoupled from the month, the quarter, et cetera, right? Once we get to the second month, now the month is uncoupled from all the other different time frames, right? And again, now we get to really see what the different participation groups are doing, and the same thing for the quarter, right? So in this scenario here, right, I'm using the bar rewind. We've rewound all the way back to June, right? The end of June, we're coming into July. So once July began, let me see if I do this right. Right, so that's 9:30. Okay, so we got the first hour candle right here, right? During this first hour, the first hour is currently coupled in time frame, excuse me, it's coupled together with all the other time frames, right? The daily, the weekly, the month, right? Once we get this second hourly candle right here, that's when this hour is now officially uncoupled from the day, the week, and the month. And now we really see what the hourly traders are and how they're feeling about this particular trade, or excuse me, about this particular ticker, at least for, again, just for this hour time frame, right? Now going to the daily, right? So this is, oh wait, sorry, hold up, my bad. I thought I had rewound this back to, give me 1 second. There. So we will, right? So the hour uncouples, and then here we are with the daily. This is the first day of July, right? So this is the beginning of the reason why I chose July, because this is the beginning of the third quarter. It's the beginning of a new month. It was the beginning, I rewound it so it can become the beginning of the new week. Same thing for the daily and same thing for the hour, right? So the hour uncouples once that second candle comes into play, right? So now we have the daily over here. This is the first day of July, right? We're still currently, let me mark out the open. Where is it? There we go. All right, so this is the first day here, and then we're going to uncouple once we get to the second day. Oh shit, wrong thing. My bad. Looking on the wrong one. There we go. Oh my gosh. My bad, y'all. Let's cut back to here, right? So once we get a new open on the second day, right, we've now officially uncoupled from, again, the week, because this is the first week right here, first day, first week in time frame continuity until we get to the second day right here, right? This is the first day of the week, right? They're both in time frame continuity till we get to the second day. And now that we have a new open, right, we've now uncoupled from the hour, uncoupled from the daily, uncoupled from the hour. The hour's uncoupled, the daily's uncoupled, and now we're working on the second week here. There we go. So now we have the second week, right? And we've uncoupled there as well too, right? So once those have begun to uncouple, what you're now seeing is the different time frames and how they are, basically how the participation groups are doing. Now you can kind of trust more the time frame continuity that you're seeing because you're seeing that these have uncoupled. And obviously, when we get to the monthly, right? Um, let me right. So this is the beginning of the month. Everything is all coupled, right? And then again, as the month continues on, by the second week is uncoupled, and then the month will uncouple once it gets to the second month. Once we go ahead and get to August, then the month is officially uncoupled from the quarterly as well too. So now we have officially uncoupled once we've gotten to August. All right. So basically, what you want with the uncoupling is you want to see what the different participation groups are doing, so that when you're seeing this full time frame continuity, um, well, for lack of a better word, you can trust it more because now you're seeing what the different participation groups are doing. And if they're in confirmation with each other, that means they all agree. So if you have an uncoupled quarter, month, week, daily, right, and hour, and they're all bullish, they're uncoupled, now you're seeing five different participation groups who are all in complete agreement about a particular ticker and saying, hey, it's time to buy this thing, right? So when you jump into that trade, um, whether it be a continuation, because I know people trade continuations as well, or a reversal, again, you're going with the flow, you're going with the trend, you're also understanding that all the different participation groups are in confirmation and agreement with each other, right? And so therefore those are recipes, excuse me, that's a recipe for a highly probable successful trade, and you can feel more comfortable and have more conviction going into it. Let me pause here to see if there's any questions. Perfect. All right. So yeah, um, I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell, right? With the uncoupling, it pretty much helps to know who's in control with the different participation groups. So, and this is the reason why conflict, time frame continuity and conflict is so important, especially if they're uncoupled. You have some of the larger time frames that are in conflict with each other, um, in with respect to, like, let's say the daily time frame, then yeah, it's probably not going to be a very successful trade. Or if you're doing it to like get in real quick, like a quick scalp, then just make sure you're checking all the different time frames and make sure the larger time frames um, are in confirmation with what it is that you're trying to do. Ideally for me, like, I really like when everything's completely uncoupled, and then when I'm looking at the trade, let's say to enter it on the 65-minute, excuse me, let's say all the other larger time frames are, bullish, right? But then let's say the daily is bearish, right? If I get an actionable signal, like a hammer, for that thing to reverse and go right back into, bullish time frame, I'm in there. Boom. You know what I mean? Because I have a conviction, I have a very high conviction. I'm entering with the flow. If it's, entering from the, from exhaustion point, back to the upside, even better, right? But yeah, that's essentially those are essentially the things that you're looking for when it comes to time frame continuity. You're looking to identify which currency it is, right? Who's in control, right? Are they in confirmation with each other, right? Or is time frame continuity changing? Is there conflict whatsoever, right? So ask yourself those things when you're looking at the time frame continuity, but then also ask about, when it comes to the uncoupling, you also want to know, more in depth, like, are we coupled together, right? When I'm looking at that weekly, is that uncoupled from the daily? Is it uncoupled from the hour? If that's what you're trying to trade on. If I'm looking at a month, if I'm looking at the month, or even let's say the quarter, is the quarter or the quarter and the month coupled together? You know what I mean? Again, the more uncoupled it is, the better, because then you'll really get to see, I guess, kind of like I said, the truth, right? You'll be able to trust it more, and pretty much go from there. Anyway, that's pretty much it, right? The third part is pretty straightforward. I'll go more in depth on the uncoupling in a separate video, but that's pretty much it, straightforward as far as being the time frame continuity and the uncoupling. I'll find some other examples to kind of elaborate on the uncoupling. Um, Next, I guess I'm going to redo the TTO. Kind of, we'll talk about that as well too in the next series. And then I'll just, keep looking for other topics and kind of keep building off of that. If there's any topics that you want to see regarding the strat, please don't hesitate to leave it in the comments of any videos. I get them, and they'll help as far as putting together the series for the entire strat. And then we'll probably do a video where we just put everything together. There's actually currently a swing trade that I'm potentially looking at that I told the group in Zamunda. Let's hope that thing works out in our favor, and then I'll see y'all in January about it. All right, so thank you guys so much for your time. Yes, for those asking, it will be recorded. Some people hit me up on the Discord. I see it on my phone asking if it's going to be recorded. Yes, it is going to be recorded because it's live. It's going to be on my YouTube. You can always come back to the YouTube and you'll see it. And yeah, like I said, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments section. We'll go from there. All right, guys. Love, peace, and chicken grease. See y'all later.